I'm not here to excuse violence against women for 1 second. But what she is depicting is not violence against women. She's depicting a choice. Something that occurs to me is extremely ironic is that the 50 Shades of Grey films grossed over $500 million at the box office. There is a female appetite for power play, for polarity, for erotic submission. Like, ticket sales don't lie. I'm sorry, you can stand on your soapbox and hold up this album cover and say, this is violence against women, it's terrible, it's outrageous, but you're fucking going to watch 50 Shades of Grey, aren't you? Because you like it. Let's stop lying to ourselves. Why? Why are we so ashamed? Why can't we say, yeah, she looks like she enjoys having her hair pulled. Good for her. She's having a fucking great time from what I can see in that photo. Why do we have to make it wrong? Because in that, we're making men and the masculine wrong. I'm Madeline Eliza, leader, writer, performer, and founder of Bhakti Lab, an incubator for soul-led entrepreneurs. Join me to explore the edgy intersection of the brain and the body, feminine and masculine, ancient and modern, sensual and spiritual, to help you liberate your personal power and turn your biggest, boldest visions into reality. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Sabrina Carpenter's album cover. It has lit an absolute outrage on the internet over the last week, and I want to add my 2 cents because it's very much at the intersection of female power, desire, sexuality, all the parts of self that we suppress and shame. And every time I record an episode like this that touches on themes of sex and sexuality, it feels really edgy. It feels really uncomfortable for me. I've come from a corporate leadership background. I work with women in corporate leadership roles. It feels like, oh my God, why are you talking about sex? But I think that cringe that we feel is exactly why we need to be talking about it, because when I listen to the discourse that's happening around this cover art release this week, I can see the intergenerational shame that even card-carrying feminists are still embodied with. And I want to do my part to right that wrong. So that's what I'm here for today. So let's get started. Sabrina Carpenter has released this album cover. If you haven't seen it, it depicts her on all fours in a tight mini dress and stilettos, and she's having her hair pulled by what looks to be a man in a suit standing to the side of the frame and above her. And the title is Man's Best Friend. And of course, this has ignited absolute outrage all over the internet. Well, opinions are split, to be fair, but there's a lot of discourse, especially in feminist circles, that this is regressive. This is setting us back 50 years. She's pandering to the male gaze. She's encouraging violence against women. It's very tone deaf. It's the wrong time for this. Femicide is at an all-time high. There's a lot of backlash. And I'm not here to excuse violence against women for 1 second. But what she is depicting is not violence against women. She's depicting a choice. And that's what I want to unravel in this episode today. I, full disclosure, have been recording content for the last 3 hours. I'm borderline delirious, so I might rattle through this, but I just feel so strongly about this. And when I listen to the conversation that's happening, there's really big pieces that are not being included, like an understanding of BDSM dynamics, which is what's depicted on this album cover, is completely missing from the context of this conversation. An understanding of Tantra and the Eastern understanding of sexuality and spirituality and power being intimately connected. We live in this kind of very dualistic Western philosophical world, most of us, and there's just huge chunks of the conversation and context missing that I want to spend some time unpacking. I am not outraged at the album cover. I don't see a woman being subjugated by a man. I see a woman willfully and making a choice to play with power, to play with BDSM kind of themes, and to play with erotic submission. I see a woman having a very good time and enjoying herself playfully, flamboyantly, outrageously. She's a pop star. She's an artist. I also think this is part of a longer kind of trajectory of male and female, but particularly female artists using their sexuality in ways that shocks the public. And it's a calculated marketing move for sure. But the point is that she's not the first female pop star to be outrageously sexual in cover art or in a magazine photo shoot. Like, look at Madonna, Rihanna, look at Miley Cyrus, look at Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera back when I was a teenager. Like, this is not a new theme. And I've been listening to kind of feminist responses to this week, and some of them have said, oh, this feels like a 2005 album cover, not a 2025 album cover. It's so tone deaf. And I just really want to pull that apart. One part that is tricky for me and that I want to name is that I know that Sabrina Carpenter has a lot of young fans, tweens and teens and adolescent girls, and I'm the mother of a daughter and a son, and I wouldn't want either of them prematurely exposed to sexualized content. So there's context there around the rights of a female artist to express herself however the fuck she wants. And also, is there a responsibility to younger fans? There's a bit of a grey area there. I'm not here to make a moralistic judgment on that, but I just want to acknowledge that. Something that I've read this week, and there's a lot of literature, I'll pop it in the show notes around this, is that when civilizations are in periods of decline or collapse, like collapse of the Roman Empire, when we're in recession, which our economy is kind of teetering on the edge of globally at the moment with all the political uncertainty that we've got, something that happens is there's this polarization between hypersexuality on one side and kind of hyper-religiosity on the other side. And we're seeing that with younger generations are having less sex, they're becoming more turning to spirituality and religion and a little bit more dogmatic and clean living. And then we see this hypersexualization, which this Sabrina Carpenter album cover could be an example of. It's a very sexually suggestive image. And I find even this conversation about the split between sex and God in a declining civilization very Western dualistic in its thinking. If you have an understanding of Tantra and Eastern concepts of spirituality, this doesn't even occur, because in Tantra, sex and God are the same thing. The body and the spirit are not at opposite ends of the spectrum. We descend into the body in order to ascend into the divine. And the work that I do with women is exactly that. It's like this pulling in two different directions. We're descending into the body and into the darkness and into the depths, and embracing and reclaiming all of those suppressed aspects of self. And we're ascending into the divine. It's why I'm a yoga teacher. It's why I'm studied these spiritual traditions. I'm interested in both embodiment and ensoulment. They're two sides of the same coin. And so this conversation about civilization in decline has hypersexuality and hyper-religiosity, and there's this split. Well, no, if you approach it with an understanding of Tantra and these very, very ancient spiritual practices, sexuality and spirituality are part of the same essence of human experience. There's no divide. It's non-dualistic. So just want to call that out as well. There's just all these pieces missing of the conversation. Something that's very relevant to conversations around leadership, which pisses me off. This episode's going to be a little bit raw because I'm, as I said, a bit tired and delirious and I've been talking for hours, but maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. We talk about wanting women to take up space. Women need to take up more space. But nobody teaches you how to do that. It's not about putting your shoulders back and putting a blazer on. It's not about yelling over the men in the boardroom. That's not taking up space. Mimicking male languages of power is not taking up space as a woman. It's fucking exhausting. That's what it is. Taking up space as a woman means actually rooting into your body. It means lifting all the rocks. It means reclaiming all the parts of yourself that you have suppressed in shame. And that includes especially your sexual expression and your desire. Because we have had generations upon generations upon generations where we have learned that our desire is dangerous, our sexuality is dangerous. What do you think Eve and the apple is about? It's about the dangers of a woman listening to her desire. It is completely embedded in our DNA. We cannot trust our own desire and our own sexual expression. It's dangerous and it's wrong. The work of taking up space as a woman, therefore, in my worldview, must include reclaiming all of the facets of yourself, including reclaiming all of the facets of your sexual expression, eradicating shame, and really being radically honest about what it is that you want and desire. Most women, even women in high-powered leadership roles, are disconnected from their true embodied power because they're disconnected from their bodies. We have been taught to cut off from our bodies. We celebrate women's voices and we say we want to hear more of women's voices, but we don't understand that the most powerful, the most potent, the most raw and true female voices are grounded in the womb and the pelvis and the belly. Like, this is where our power comes from. And I really believe that if we want to encourage women to take up space, we need to fucking teach them how to do that. We need to teach how to plug back into this power source in your own body, because until you do that, you're not actually empowered. Even if you're on a soapbox as a feminist, like, if there's a disconnect, I'm sorry, but you're not able to take up as much space as you could. And you are always going to hang out in this space of victimhood. Because when we're not a master of our own body and our own power, then we default to victimhood and we throw rocks outwards. I'm not interested in that. It's a very disempowering perspective. We have no agency if you're a victim. I prefer to be a master of my own body and my own power source and move about the world from that space. So that's my thoughts on women taking up space. Next point. Desire is not the same as disempowerment. So I listened to this podcast episode this week. I'm not going to name names, but it's very well known, like young feminist podcast. And they talked a lot about how tone deaf this album cover art is because there's so much violence against women and it's such a big problem. And it is. I don't disagree. However, Sabrina Carpenter in this photo is not depicting an act of violence against women. A man pulling a woman's hair in a scene of erotic submission and surrender is not violence against women. To me, it looks like she's quite enjoying having her hair pulled, actually. And there's this whole conversation around erotic submission and female desire where we actually desire to be claimed and taken and penetrated by the masculine. And something that occurs to me is extremely ironic is that the 50 Shades of Grey films grossed over $500 million at the box office. $500 million, $560 something million. I'll put the reference in the show notes. And yet there is a female appetite for power play, for polarity, for erotic submission. Like, ticket sales don't lie. I'm sorry. You can stand on your soapbox and hold up this album cover and say, this is violence against women. It's terrible. It's outrageous. But you're fucking going to watch 50 Shades of Grey, aren't you? Because you like it. Like, stop lying. Let's stop lying to ourselves. Why? Why are we so ashamed? Why can't we say, yeah, she looks like she enjoys having her hair pulled. Good for her. She's having a fucking great time from what I can see in that photo. Why do we have to make it wrong? Because in that, we're making men and the masculine wrong. And there's this whole realm of sexual expression, of male dominance and feminine submission, which I believe has a bit to do with the way that our biology is constructed, right? Like, think about it. But we make it wrong and we call this violence. It's not violence. Erotic submission is not inherently disempowering. So if you know anything about BDSM, you'll know that actually the submissive holds all the power. If you're in a conscious kink dynamic, the submissive is hugely empowered. It's not an act of subjugation, it's an act of choice, what she's depicting on this album cover. It is not the same as violence against women. Can we stop throwing the baby out with the bathwater, please? I've spoken before about the feminist sex wars of the 1980s. And again, this context is missing from the conversation. There is a whole lineage of thought around sex and pleasure and desire. And there were two camps of feminists. I would side with the sex-positive feminists who said that a woman should actually be free to express her desire and her sexuality in whichever way pleases her, even if that includes playing with power dynamics with men. So that's like the lineage that this album cover sits within. And she's depicting She's a wildly empowered, successful woman who is making a choice to interact with the masculine in this way. That's not wrong. Clearly, we don't think it's wrong because we flock to see BDSM flavored movies. I don't know the stats on like bodice ripping erotic literature, but I know a lot of women are reading that too. So it just feels a little bit hypocritical to me. Get a little bit riled up about this. Okay, so a lot of the outrage is around the male gaze. This is the other topic I want to be talking about. What if she's not pandering to the male gaze like a fucking victim? What if she's playing with it because it's fun and empowering to play with the male gaze? It's on this particular podcast episode, these girls were saying that, she's being sarcastic. She's being ironic, but nobody will get that. It's so bad. Like, I wish people would get that she was being sarcastic. Maybe she's not being sarcastic. Maybe she likes having her hair pulled and being objectified in a sexual way because it's fun and enjoyable and pleasurable. Is it so wild to say that? Like, I don't understand why that feels like such an outrageous thing to say when it's clear that there's this appetite for this form of sexual experience and expression. And as far as the male gaze goes, if you look at like our evolutionary history as human beings, we as women have evolved to seek the male gaze. We are hardwired to seek it. We want to be chosen. We want to feel beautiful. I've spoken about this before as well. I have a 4-year-old daughter who wants to adorn herself and feel beautiful. Why is that wrong? I think that is the more interesting question to ask. When you see a woman cavorting playfully, flamboyantly, enjoying the attentions of the masculine, whether that involves erotic submission or not, why does that trigger you so much? I think this is the more interesting question to be asking, because erotic submission is not wrong. Playing with the male gaze is not wrong. It's possible that she actually likes having her hair pulled and she's allowed to. That's fine. It feels in a lot of ways like this is a woman expressing her desire and her sexuality, and we're calling it wrong, which is exactly like, it's like part of the problem with this patriarchal system that we're in. We make a woman's desire wrong. I have a hypothesis around why this triggers women so deeply. I feel very connected to my own erotic power. I know what I like. I don't have any shame. I've reckoned with those parts of myself. And that's the work that I guide other women through, because I have to tell you, as a leader, I've been a leader with unintegrated shame and not having faced the truth of my own embodied experience and trying to adopt this posturing of male power. And I've been a leader on the other side of that dark underworld journey that I've been on, of reckoning with my own shame and my own desire and all of the embodiment and ensoulment practices that I teach. And I feel like 1,000,000 times more empowered now, having reckoned with all of that, than I did before. And when I see a woman playfully, flamboyantly expressing her sexuality, I'm not fucking triggered by it. I think, good on you, Sabrina. I hope you sell a shit ton of albums. Like, you look hot and sexy and like you're having a great time to me. Like, props to you. I'm not triggered by it. I believe that women who are triggered by other women pandering to the male gaze and being overtly sexual possibly feel triggered because there is unintegrated shame and unintegrated desire hiding under the surface of their own embodied experience. And it's much easier to throw rocks outwards than it is to really reckon with lifting the rocks on the inside and seeing what's underneath. This image stirs something ancient and untamed. It's like this feral expression of the wild feminine in a total state of abandon and surrender to the masculine. It triggers something in us. And I think it's more interesting to ask, why does this make me so uncomfortable? We say we want feminine empowerment. We say we want free female expression. But then when we see it, when a woman actually claims her erotic power, it terrifies us, a lot of us. Why? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're listening or watching this podcast episode, get in touch with me. I'd love to hear your take on this. I think when we're triggered, it's because it shines a light on a shadow within us. And I'd invite you, if this triggers you, to look at what you might be hiding from inside yourself. In closing, I would like to make a few comments about erotic power. So your sexual energy, if we look at Kundalini, the concept of Kundalini is it's a snake coiled at the base of the spine. Well, actually in the lineage I've learned, it's coiled at your navel point, which is like your fire center of your body. And when you activate the Kundalini, it descends to the root and then it ascends to the crown and connects you with the infinite. And it's the same as your sexual energy. It lives in this lower region of the body. And it's your life force energy. It's your creative energy. Like, the purpose of sexual energy is to create new life. There's huge potency in this energy inside of each of us. And if we're disconnected from it, we're disconnected from our own power source. So I think it's a really important rite of passage for every woman to reclaim her own erotic power, to really look at herself and go, what turns me on? Does a man pulling my hair or choking me a little bit turn me on? Oh, does that make me a bad feminist? No, it fucking doesn't. Can we please move on? It's 2025. Didn't realize how riled up I was until I started recording this. Really reclaiming your erotic power is about listening to the longing deep inside you. Like, what is the ache in you? Where is shame hiding out in you? Where are you suppressing your truth and your wildness and your rawness because you feel like it's too big or too much or not allowed? It's generations of suppression that we have an opportunity to unshackle. And when you unshackle it, you liberate this hugely powerful energy within yourself. It's like you take the lid off your own capacity. And doesn't everybody want that? Isn't that, when we're talking about female empowerment, aren't we talking about unlimited capacity? Like, isn't that what we want? So when we see a woman taking up space and claiming her own erotic power, which is what Sabrina Carpenter is doing with this album cover, how about instead of making it wrong or shaming it, we celebrate it? Because sometimes feminist leadership doesn't look like a TED talk in a polished blazer. Sometimes it looks like a pop star on all fours, just looking at us saying, yeah, this turns me on and I'm having fun. And there's no apology and there's no explanation. And I, for one, celebrate that. I do not believe this album cover is dangerous. What I believe is dangerous is this continuing attitude of policing and shaming female desire. Because whilst ever we continue to do that, we continue to push the wilder, stronger aspects of feminine expression underground. We continue to implicitly tell women to suppress and oppress themselves. And we thwart the progress of feminism and female empowerment. So thank you for joining me today. If you want more resources, practices on how to reclaim those suppressed parts of yourself, please check out my website, madelineeliza.com, or I'm on Instagram at madeline.eliza, and I'll be sharing all my upcoming courses and programs and workshops and retreats there. Thanks for joining me today.